Welcome, BookMattic lifelong learners, to the BookMattic Lifelong Learning Podcast. We have an awesome guest here today, Paul Croswell. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, man. It's such a pleasure to be on and to be able to connect with you today.
Yeah, man. Paul Croswell is the author of Life Balance, which I just read recently. And Life Balance is a really cool book because, well, it works on your work life balance. It's really practical, which is the thing that I absolutely loved about his book. Um, there's a whole lot of books out there about life balance, work life balance, and like habits, and all this stuff. But the thing that I really loved about Pause was he tells his personal story, which is relatable, and that's what we truly look for when we read books. Is we want something that is very relatable, and that's what you're going to get when you read Paul's book. And I believe he also has a workbook, a partner workbook to his book as well. So I'll let him introduce a little bit more about his book and his workbook and himself. So go ahead, Paul.
Awesome. Thank you again so much, Matt. So Life Balance is a book about improving your life balance. And the approach that the book takes is it takes you on a journey on how to use healthy life balance to become the kind of person who can reach almost any goal you set for yourself. Starting and really kind of basing itself on the premise of healthy life balance creates the environment for you to be able to become uh, really a catalytic goal reacher, so to speak. And in the book, I introduced 12 principles that helps you to grow in this way, the mental battle, a more strategic way of taking action towards your goals. And then finally, the long-term setup, or how to set yourself up for long-term success in reaching your goals, and even after you reach your goals, to be able to go from there. And the workbook, as you mentioned, is designed to help anyone going through the book to apply each of these principles to get a better understanding. I highly recommend using them together, but of course, the book is just, you can use it by itself.
Yeah, definitely. The book is also very practical. I like those exercises that you have at the end of the chapters. So those
Yeah.
can really help people to, to progress with their goals. And before this episode, I was looking through the Amazon reviews of your book, which are outstanding. And people were saying it's almost like having a personal life coach, or success coach right over your shoulder reading that book. And I really love that quote from whoever wrote the review. I definitely agree. It's like you got this person sitting right next to you when you're reading the book. So that's really cool. The vibe is great. So yeah, what inspired you to write Life Balance?
Yeah. Life balance is and has been a long journey for me. I like to point out that life balance I feel has never been an option for me, even from a very young age. So I was born with something called sickle cell anemia. And for those who aren't familiar with sickle cell, it is a blood disorder where your cells are shaped in an irregular way that makes it, excuse me, easy for blood clots to form. And what happens when these clots form is it leads to chronic pain, severe chronic pain. I've come across women with sickle cell anemia who've said that their sickle cell pain was worse than the pain of child labor. Just to give context to the level of pain that this causes. And one of the stories I share early on in the book is about an episode I had when I was about 8 years old, where one of my lungs completely collapsed and the other one was functioning at half capacity. And that entire episode left me in a coma for a while. The doctors literally didn't think I was going to make it. They encouraged my mom to begin to prepare for my funeral, basically. And So as a result of this, right, and just a series of going through this over and over and over again, I had to learn very quickly how to manage life in a healthy way. Because sickle cell can be triggered not only by physical interaction or overexertion, but by stress and being overly stressed as a result of really anything. And so I had to figure out how to navigate and manage life and life stress in a healthy way. Otherwise, my life would be this series of crisis after crisis.
Mm.
um and so life balance is really the culmination or the gathering of all of the lessons I've learned over the years of how to manage the stress of life in a healthy way, beginning with how to win the mental battle of, hey, these are things that I need to do in order to live a healthy life, but when I try to do them, I begin to fight this mental battle and needing to overcome that, and then figuring out how to take action in a healthy way, in a way that's in line with my personal, mental, emotional, even spiritual wiring, that makes it easy for me to actually reach the goals I set. And then how to do that long term, so not in,
Yeah.
kind of these quick hacks, but in a long term, sustainable way of becoming the kind of person who can do this. And so that's where life balance comes from. And I'll just add real quick, Matt, if I can.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I didn't intend to write a book.
Hmm.
When I started this process, and I don't know if I've told you this before, but when I started this process, the goal was, hey, I've been blogging. I'll put together a few of my blog posts into kind of an ebook, short thing with some helpful tips on how to do some of these things. And I just kept writing and writing and writing. And 8 months later, I had a book. So here we
Mhm.
are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I mean, the book really turned out well because, well, it's not extremely long either, right? It's very digestible, which is fantastic. And
Yeah.
Paul, I'm glad that you brought up the sickle cell story because I was actually going to ask you about that. So now I don't have to ask you about it, but I do want to clarify the fact that most of the time when people struggle through something like I've got rheumatoid arthritis, so it's not as serious as your condition, but
Yeah.
people with conditions learn how to cope with those conditions and learn, build like these structures like you built in this book. So
Yeah.
that's really worthy of reading Paul's story and trying to apply these strategies in your life. So thank you so much for bringing that up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. It is a struggle, but we persevere and we get through it. We figure out how
Absolutely.
to get
And
through it. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying we figure out how to get through it. If you want to say something further, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, and I think the power of it is the how we learn to persevere, right?
Hmm.
Because you have to think creatively to overcome certain struggles, especially as it pertains to health conditions. And the more creatively you're able to think, and you're able to come up with these kind of different ways of looking at, for the most part, common problems, you can stumble upon some really helpful things, not just for yourself but others.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. We're all helping each other out. That's
Absolutely.
the great thing about this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, next thing here that I want to ask you is uh, what do you think most people struggle with when setting and staying accountable for their goals that they set for themselves?
Yeah. Not to sound cliche, I guess, but I think life balance is the biggest struggle. And I think it remains the biggest struggle because it's almost hidden. It's not considered almost at all whenever the conversation of goal setting and goal getting comes up. You don't often hear about life balance. You hear about time management. You hear about different goal structures, like the smart goals and things like that. but you don't actually hear about life balance. And I think the problem with this is that your goals exist in the context of your life. And so, for example, let's take a common goal, losing weight. At least in I want to say the Western world, there's an obsession with our physical appearance and looking a certain way, and so that becomes a really common goal, right? Whenever you consider the idea of, hey, I want to lose some weight, is a really common goal, you have to consider, well, what's your diet like, right? um who, if you live in a house with other people, who's doing the cooking? Because if you're planning to lose weight but someone else is the one making your meals for you, you have to figure out what your interaction in your relationship is like with that person and their partnership in reaching that goal. What's your mental health like in your personal life? What are the things that you're that may be a hurdle in reaching your goals? Are you just dealing with a breakup or a job loss? Are you just starting a new job and you have certain demands that mentally and emotionally is draining, and you won't have the energy to show up for yourself when you say you will to reach your goal? And how about your social life? Are you going to stop hanging out with all your friends just off the bat in order to show up at the gym when you need to? What's the impact there? And so you have all these things, right? Your personal, your family, your social, and career life, these four key areas of life, which we break down in the book, that all have their own demands on you. And then what happens is we show up, to the end of the year, so to speak, and we say, okay, well, these are my New Year's resolutions, or these are my goals for the new year, and we don't make room for them. We overlook the fact that these other demands still exist, and all we're doing is piling our new goals on top of those things. And eventually, and very quickly, most studies show that most New Year's resolutions pretty much die at the end of 2 weeks. And for those who push further, at the end of a month, most people don't make it through the year because their goals get buried under the context of their life, which existed before the goals. But what could it look like if we started a few steps back? If we started with looking at our work-life balance, looking at our whole life balance in these four areas of life, and how we're managing what already exists in these areas, and then create room for the goals that we set for ourselves. How
Mhm.
much more does our goal reaching potential grow?
Mhm. Definitely.
So that would be my opinion on that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like the way that I personally look at like kind of what you were talking about, the balance between the four areas is we only have enough energy and time during the day, right? So
Yeah.
like if we're trying to add all this extra stuff during the day, um, we're going to run out of energy, and we're also going to run out of time during the 24-hour day, 8 hours sleeping of that, right? So yeah,
Yep.
we've got to make sure that we pour enough energy into our bottles, and then we decide what sort of balance we're going to use during that whole day. I personally use a day view, right? Each day I'm going to put this much energy into the
Yeah.
specific areas, four areas of my life. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you is how can maybe you already touched on this, but how can people achieve life balance, and actually what does it mean to you? Two
Yeah.
questions in one.
Well, I love those questions combined. The To the first question of how can people achieve life balance, I think it's first important to recognize that life balance looks different for everyone, right? You and I, for example, one, we're in very different parts of the world, and so the context of our setting is going to impact our ability to shape our life balance. And then the other pieces of our lives, right? So I'll use, for example, one person who maybe I want to say a college student, right? And they're living at home with their parents and they're looking to build out their life balance. And then you take the parents and they're living at home with an adult child. Their life balance are going to look very, very different. And that's because the demands on each of these four areas of life are going to be very different for them. So for the college student, their personal life and their family life are going to have very different demands compared to their parents' personal and family life. It might be almost complete opposite. And then definitely with the social life and then their academic career life. So we have to begin by figuring out what exactly are the demands on these four areas of our lives. And there are different ways to go about this, but one of the simplest way for anyone who's looking to uh, improve their life balance or just really just kind of discover how to start by answering this question for yourself. What does an improved quality of life look like for me in each of these areas of life? And write out the 3 to 6 most demanding things in each of these areas of life, in your personal life, your family life, your social life, and your career life. What are the 3 to 6 most demanding things? And then who are the 3 to 6 most important people in your life in these four areas? And once you have that down in front of you, written out of your mind and all visible on one page, hopefully, you will be able to see, okay, well, that's why so much of my time is eaten up, at work, or that's why so much of my time is secretly being devoured in my social life. And I have no idea why, because you're not seeing where these demands are coming from. But once you're able to see it, then you can begin to decide if that's where you want it to go, right? Because we steward or we manage our finances, right? We budget our finances. We ought to budget our time and attention. And when you're able to see where it's going, then you can begin to budget it correctly. Um, as far as what it means to me in terms of life balance for me is a matter of context. Like for me, it's foundational. It's not optional. I was giving a talk a few days ago, and one of the things that I shared is that life balance is not a luxury. It's foundational. It's not something that s- only certain people with a certain income level should be able to have or are able to have. It's something that all of us need. Saying you need healthy life balance is like saying you need um, great mental health. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, what your context is, what your circumstances are. Mental health is foundational. If you have poor mental health, your quality of life will deteriorate and just straight up fall apart. And it's the same thing with life balance. It is absolutely foundational to living a healthy and meaningful life.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's where I
Well
stand
said.
on
Well said. I love it. I love it. That's a great, great part of this episode. So I hope people are paying attention and taking notes as well. 'Cause
it.
they can apply this in their life. Oh, this is going to make such a big difference, man. So yeah, that's cool. How
Yeah.
often do you do speaking gigs?
Well, right now, I'm just starting out, to be very transparent with you, because up until this point, my attention has been on completing the book and
Okay.
just connecting with people over it. And so, really, this year is when I'm really just beginning to get out there and share some of this stuff more publicly through speaking engagements. So, hopefully, this year will be the year, I just kind of roll into that a bit more.
Cool, man. Yeah, that's exciting because I mean, especially you can access Zoom and do these talks like pretty much you don't even have to be there, right? To be
Exactly.
talking to people from across the world. So yeah, definitely. That's exciting. Very exciting.
And the powerful thing about that too, and this is something I guess I'll just put out there, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter the context. Like this can be a small group discussion, or this can be a corporate office discussion in terms of life balance. Because as far as we've been talking about individuals, but if you look at it from an organizational perspective, if your employees have poor life balance, they get to work, they're not focused, they're not productive, they're not efficient. But if you're able to equip them to live a life that has healthy life balance, it's synonymous with healthy mental health. It They all of a sudden are able to be in a place where they're able to function more efficiently at work and produce more, do more, and be happier doing it. And as a result, the company grows, and so this can be a conversation in almost any sphere.
Yeah, true. So true, man. I think that's actually really important for like managers and CEOs and bosses to hear, because oftentimes you'll get someone who doesn't really pay attention to that, and they just expect you to do your work no matter no matter what, right? So yeah, having that
Yeah.
life balance is really important on individual and business, company level, organization level. So cool. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why should people buy your book? that's that's a great question for you. Why should people buy your book?
This is probably going to be the hardest question for me because I'm still growing as a marketer. Let's put it that way. I'm not great at that. Uh, but I think at the most basic level is if you desire to live a life of meaning, right? If you desire to live a life where you feel equipped to be able to reach the goals you set in front of you, not just reach a goal, right? There are a lot of books that teach you how to lose 15 pounds in 2 weeks, or how to start this, how to do that. This book, it starts a few steps behind those books. It puts you in a position to reach any goal you set, to learn how to set goals and go after those goals in a way that's in line with your mental wiring, your emotional wiring, your spiritual wiring, and puts you in a position to become that kind of person that ultimately you want to become, right? Where you're able to set a goal in front of you and go after it. And if that's your desire, if that's your heart, where you want to be that kind of person and you want to experience an improved quality of life, then my book is for you. Right? If you have no desire for that, if you're content with where you are and you're like, hey, I think I'm good with my life balance, then my book may not be for you, and that's all right. I'm perfectly fine with that. But for those who feel like they're in need of what this has to offer, then by all means go for it.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, great. And is there anything else that you would like to add that maybe I missed?
Um, I think we can just jump back to the speaking for a second.
Sure.
I just want to point out that on top of speaking and sharing about this, like I said, in many different spheres, this whether this is a church, right? And being able to speak at a church and share the context of this. And for those who are listening who aren't involved in a church and you're wondering, well, how exactly does this connect with, what's going on? There are a lot of goals in our spiritual lives that we take on. There are a lot of, if you want to see it as commands, that we receive on our ends as goals that we work towards. And if you're not in a position to be able to reach those goals or be the kind of person to reach those goals, it can impact your growth spiritually. And again, in a corporate context, as well as individuals. And so I offer consulting services, I offer speaking services for anyone who's looking to have someone come on and come alongside them to help them to explore and apply these principles in their context, to give them really a one-to-one assistance in walking this stuff out. These are things that I do, right? And so you can find more information about that on my website. It's just my name, paulwcroswell.com, and you'll find all the information on it.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll definitely leave a link in the description of this episode. And yeah, people can go over there. I hope they do. At least checking out the book, like, I'll leave a link for that as well. That way people can check it out. It's valuable. It's short. It's practical. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, you already answered the fact that they can find you at your website. Is there any other place that they can find you? And where should they buy your book?
Yeah. So I am like most, I want to say right now on social media. I'm all over social media basically. In a past life, I was a hip hop artist, and so all of my social channels still exist. Um, I'm mostly on Instagram, so if you want to interact with me, I respond to almost everyone who reaches out to me, whether in as a DM or in the comments. So you can find me on Instagram. Again, it's just Paul W Croswell. Same with Twitter. I love interacting and engaging with folks on Twitter as well as Facebook. All of this, you're just looking up my name, and it really should be the first one to pop up. In most contexts, it is. And my website is the hub of all the information. If you're looking to purchase the book, the workbook, I also have what's called a work-life balance manager. It's a planner slash journal that you can use to, it's designed specifically to manage these four areas of your life in a very prominent way. It brings it to the forefront, and it runs perfectly in line with the principles in the book. It's
Mhm,
built on the principles of the book, actually. And so all of this is available on my website, as well as on Amazon. So
mhm,
if you want to purchase the book or the workbook or the planner, you can just find it on Amazon, and you'll find the Amazon link on my website on the first
mhm,
page of my website. So
mhm.
go
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah. Is that the Vita planner, if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken?
Vitamap.
Map.
And
Yeah.
Vita
Sorry.
is just it's the European word in most European countries. It's the word for life. So
Okay.
life map. So
Life.
that's really what it is.
Cool, man. I'm glad you also brought that up because that's something I totally forgot to mention about earlier. So, yeah, do you want to mention anything else about the Vita map since we didn't really talk about it? It's okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Feel free.
just briefly, it's not a traditional planner. Most planners are designed to give you a space to kind of dump the things that you need to do, right? This is designed a little, I want to say a little more intentionally, if that's all right. It's designed specifically to help you to manage your life balance. And so, of course, there are places for you to put out all the things that you need to do in a day, a month, a year. And there are two different versions of it. It gives you a weekly outline or a daily outline that gives you a full page each day for doing your planning. But
Mhm,
at the same time, it allows you to track your life balance in each of these areas of life. And what's cool about it is that you're able to catch any potential deficiencies building up, and any of your areas of life, personal, family, social, career, before it hits a point of crisis. Because that's what happens when we lose balance, is we lose track of one or more of these areas of life, and then eventually it comes back in a far worse shape, and we have to stop everything we're doing, all the positive progress we're making in the other areas of life, in order to bring this unhealthy area back to a place of health. But
mhm,
what would it look like if we're able to track all four of these areas, keep them in the forefront as we're making decisions and setting goals? And
mhm,
that's what Vitamap is all about. That's what this life balance planner and manager is designed to help you to do. So
mhm,
I really hope that's helpful to someone.
mhm. Yeah, definitely. Curious, how does it help you to track, or how can you track with it?
I love that. So it allows you, as you plan out your day, you're able to assign each priority task or a major task to a specific area of life. So, for example, on a daily sheet, you set out, you write out the list of things you're doing, and then your priority task, or the 3 to 4 biggest things that you're tackling that day, you're able to select, okay, is this a personal life task? Is this a family life task, a social life task, or a career life task? And when you get to the end of the week and then the end of the month and so on, you're able to basically calculate where your best energy is going, right? And so if you get to the end of the week and you realize half of my energy have gone to all career stuff, and I've given zero priority to any social life things and very little to personal life things, and then family life things is kind of coming in second to career, then you can see before it hits a point of crisis, hey, I might be heading in a really horrible direction in my social life. And I might need to give that a little bit more attention. So it's not about an equal distribution of time and energy across. It's just a matter of being able to see where you are,
Mhm.
see what your habits, your behaviors are, so that you can adjust them before they get to a place where it's far too unhealthy.
Mhm. That sounds awesome. It sounds very visual as well, which is nice because I know that, a lot of people learn in a different way. So having
Yep.
like the visual aspect, something that you can write in, uh, that sounds very, very helpful. So good. Thank you very much for sharing about it.
Absolutely. And I'm
Yeah.
a visual learner, so that's
Yeah. Yeah.
probably why it's like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's good because I mean, yeah, like I said, everyone learns in a little bit of different ways. So if you mix in those different aspects in with your Vita map, then yeah, it's going to help the people who have that certain style of learning. So
Yeah.
yeah, nice man.
And
Yeah.
I was
So
just gonna add,
go ahead.
just on the topic of the Vitamap, it's also a gratitude journal, which I'm certain you've come across this already, of the importance and the significance of gratitude on our mental and emotional health as human beings. And so there are plenty of gratitude journals and articles and blog posts on the importance of uh, growing gratitude in your life. Even if you watch like the minimalist documentary, just all these things, they point to this. And so this is built into the planner. Each day you're able to journal, your gratitude for that day. And the
Mhm.
goal of that is to grow gratitude in your life, which improves, by the way, your mental health. So just tacking that on.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a huge advocate of journaling and showing gratitude. So that's a really big plus for that. And I always talk
Yeah.
about it on my profile in my Facebook group,
Yeah.
basically everywhere I talk about it, YouTube channel, everywhere, because it's so important. So yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, cool. Well, thank you so much, Paul. I really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope that every single person listening enjoyed it, learned a lot from it. Pick up the book. Definitely pick up the book. And yeah, thank you very much, Paul.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Matt. This was a pleasure for me. Just being able to connect with you and talk a little bit about this information. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.